Welcome to the D&D Fitness Radio podcast, brought to you by your hosts, Don Saladino from New York City and Derek Hansen from Vancouver, Canada.
Yeah, so what I wanted to do, Brandon, is Don and I are always railing on about different wearables and how shitty they are.
Yeah.
And you know, like I deal with running populations, and Don and I have some ideas and working with running people.
Right.
And they're always asking, like, what should I get? What, does this work? Is a wrist worn device, is it good enough for what I'm doing? And a lot of time we don't know exactly what to tell them, because it does depend on, one, their performance level or their nerdiness around like accuracy and all that. But in your experience, does this stuff matter? I mean, if you're dealing with a military group and they're like, we want dead on accuracy and we want to be able to monitor everybody and make sure, we get good data, what are you looking at compared to maybe a consumer device?
Well, actually what's funny is we're looking at, consumer off-the-shelf devices for military application, right? Because they're cheap, they're easy, and like they're what's available for the field, right? Like, so there's a big distinction between, medical grade devices and consumer off-the-shelf devices, right? And like with medical grade, as you would expect, you want like very little error, right? When you go into the doctor and they tell you your blood pressure is, 120 over 80, you don't want them to follow up and say, well, plus or minus 20, right? That's just not like what you want. You want like, okay, this is what it is. I'm really certain, maybe like 1 millimeter of mercury one way or versus the other, or two, right? Yeah, so with consumer devices, the people throw out terms like FDA cleared. It doesn't mean it's, FDA approved. There's a difference there. I think you kind of hit it on the head, Derek, that it's kind of what people's appetite are for accuracy. What is their own internal error budget? So what I mean by that is like, take body composition. I think that's a great example to where, if you use a DEXA scan, that's going to be really, really good. That's going to have very little, deviations, like plus or minus, I think 3%, right? Then
and
you
how much does that cost if somebody gets one of those?
I don't know what it costs, like what it would cost to get one, because we've just kind of had them in facilities. And,
okay.
I mean, there's a downside too. I get accuracy, but then I get exposed to radiation, right? And then people say, well, how much? And it's like, well, not more than one cross-country flight. I'll be like, oh, okay, I'll do it, right? It's
yes, not like digging foxholes in Chernobyl, right?
Yes, right in the Red Forest. Yes, digging foxholes in the Red Forest. Yes, without equipment, protective equipment, right? But then you like, there's other levels, right? Would you rather get for body composition, calipers, and calipers being used by somebody who doesn't use calipers, right? Or hasn't used them very much, or, girth measurements, tape measures around, at the different sites, or, a bod pod, or do you want like someone like, Don saying, Brandon, I think you're 7%, right? It's like, so it again, it depends on what people's appetite for error is. All of those methods of body composition are fine. It just really depends on, like you mentioned, the nerdiness and how much error each individual person is comfortable with.
How do you like when you guys go and do this like third-party testing on wearables? How do you find out, right? I mean, how do you really kind of do a deep dive? Is there like a standard way to be able to look at like a Garmin or a Whoop or, all these other, a polar monitor, something that's measuring readiness, Morpheus, whatever it is? I'm just making up names right now, but is there a way you guys go, and is there like, what's the industry standard that you put that against to basically be able to show that comparison?
So that's a great question. There's two ways of looking at it. One, it's a comparative thing, right? So you compare it against what they say is the gold standard.
Yeah.
And the gold standard means it's the most acceptable method for having something that's reliable, right? So like for sleep, it's polysomnography, right? So you go into a sleep lab, they hook you up to the EEG, they measure your heart rate, they hook you up tons of wires, they're measuring oxygen saturation, they're measuring respiration rate, they're measuring brain waves. And the question is the gold standard gold because it's really gold, or is it just because it's the best we have? And I think polysomnography is a good example that it's just the best that we have, right? We don't really have anything. There hasn't been a better mousetrap built yet for that. Where heart rate, we know the gold standard is, like ECG, right? So we can compare those values to that. The difficulty is these things are hard because, like, in order to measure heart rate and compare heart rate and activity, we're putting EKGs on people riding bikes, putting EKGs on people, not 12 leads, right? But as many leads as we can on people that can run on a treadmill. And then we'll compare it with the wrist-worn device and look at it side by side. So that's kind of how you do that. But then there's a way of comparing gold standards to like the field, like what is the best in the field. So if we're talking heart rate, the Polar H10 chest strap is probably the best chest strap on the market right now, today, as we're speaking. So now people could say, well, I will compare my wrist-worn devices or my other devices to the Polar H10 because I really just want field-based, reliability, field-based accuracy. So I'll skip the ECG and I'll just compare it to the Polar H10. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, because I see, obviously you see these Apple Watch advertisements about their ECG capabilities, and I think Garmin has one now too. And then there's an Apple ad, like somebody falls down in the forest and it calls for help. Like a lot of the stuff is bordering on like medical, health, wellness. Like we're gonna save your life and we're gonna diagnose this. Is that good, or is that kind of in an area that they shouldn't?
No, I think, it depends. I mean, there's obviously, data security issues that come with that, just like anything, right? Data security in a hospital is just as important as data security when you're out driving in your car, right? And I mean, shoot, the amount of letters I get a year saying that your information has been exposed, right, from some group, right? It happens all the time, but I guess where I'm going with this is that, Apple is trying to go medical based. So they are trying to really tighten that error in as much as possible so they can get FDA approval for their device. Okay. So they're trying to move that way. Some of these other groups, Whoop, Aura, whomever, right? Fitbit, they're not really, at least right now with the current leadership, they're not interested in going in that type of direction, because when you get FDA approval, you really have to have a deep dive under the hood. And I don't think a lot of these companies want anybody to look under their hood. A lot of times we have issues trying to validate products and just obtaining the raw data, right? Can you let us peek under the hood? Oh, no. No looking under the hood, right? Nothing behind the curtain, nothing to see here, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like quite expensive to get FDA approval, isn't it? Like it's quite a process.
It is it's a very extensive and costly process, but a $1 trillion company like Apple's can do that.
Yeah. Right. It almost reminds me of that word proprietary, right? Which is, to me, is a big fuck you. It's like, okay, we're going to list all the ingredients, but then there's just this one area here that we're just going to tell you to go fuck yourself in with, excuse my language. And it's called proprietary. So we're not really going to tell you what ingredients in that ingredient, right? So now you're sitting here going, well, wait a second, like, this makes this entire ingredient list obsolete. A big problem that I'm having with a lot of these wearables is that it's not truly measuring, all the activity that you're doing throughout a day. It's like, okay, well, I'm not going to call it any companies, but you're going to put this watch on and it's going to measure your golf round, but it's not going to measure the 600-pound deadlift that you just did, right? Like that's not important. And I'm like, well, it kind of is, isn't it? You know what I'm saying? Like, so for me, and maybe that's why I lean more towards some of the sleep aids, because I'm worried about, as I stole the words from you, behavioral change. I'm just more interested in seeing how can I improve that sleep quality. And that's really all I'm looking at, but it can't really fully take into consideration my entire day of activity. So why am I going to listen to it? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you're right. And what's funny is a lot of these devices for sleep, right, don't even capture the entire day.
Right.
So what they will do is the sleep sensing capabilities may turn on at 7 at night and turn off at like 11 in the morning or something like that. I made up those numbers.
Sure.
So some of these wrist-worn devices don't have the capability of even measuring naps because they don't, it's a lot to kind of take, right? Some do, right? But so I agree, like measuring activity, it doesn't always do it and doesn't do it well, right? Like I have like an Apple Watch, right? I had to like close one ring was left, right? I'd gone for my run for the day. I've done this. I've stood my 12 hours or whatever. And I'm sitting there and I'm typing and all of a sudden I hear, boop, you just reached your goal. I'm like, I didn't do anything. I'm sitting here typing, right? So it's kind of funny, right? Like sometimes we take steps even when we're sitting still. So they're not perfect. And I think that's the thing that people need to understand is these devices are not going to be perfect. Or as we like to say, the nice word is it's not commercially mature enough, right? It's like saying, no, you're not fat, you're just short for your weight, right? It's like the nicer way of saying it. So I think that's kind of where we are is that, it's $1 billion market, the wearable market. And everybody, just like supplements, right? It's $1 billion market. And everybody, just even a small slice of that yields a whole lot of money. So,
Right.
It seems like being an early adopter isn't a great thing. It's like, let's just kind of wait and see and how these things work themselves out and get the bugs out. And, because if a new product comes out and says, we do everything, it's like, no, stay away from them. Right.
Yeah. But even if you look at it, like if you look at some of these, I'll take Aura, for instance, right? Like they measure, HRV and heart rate and SpO2, the new generation measures SpO2, right? Heart rate for activity, and it measures, sleep staging and all these other things, right? A lot of them, they don't do really well, right? But some of these companies, as I talk to them, are like, Brandon, we have to say we do sleep staging. We know it's not good, but because everybody else is doing it, nobody wants to buy our product if we don't offer that. It's like a sleep supplement, right? Yeah, it's like a sleep supplement. If people pick up a sleep supplement and one has melatonin and one doesn't, oh, the melatonin one, this one, they don't know what they're talking about, even though it's not the case, right? It's just what they perceive, and it's marketing.
I remember Garden of Life tried coming out with a pre-workout without, I think it had very low levels of caffeine or like no caffeine. And you're just sitting here going, yeah, I get what you're trying to do, but is it going to be well received? I mean, my next question about Apple is, they are, like you just said, they have the biggest budget. They are, they're the big name out there right now. Are all these other companies is it just a matter of time? Is it like, all right, well, at some point when Apple does go medical grade and they can put that stamp of approval behind everything and suddenly heart rate is spot on, and there's someone who's going to figure it out first. It's probably them because of their budget. I mean, I don't know if you agree or disagree with me, but like, isn't this just like a ticking time bomb right now for all these other companies? Like, how does Whoop, how does Fitbit, how do these companies even compete with an Apple?
Well, I think that what they're doing is they're competing with people who don't necessarily have Apple products, right? That's one. And, the other thing is, Apple charges a lot of money for their stuff. Like I can go get a Fitbit pretty damn cheap, right? I can get a nice Fitbit for $200. I'm not getting an Apple Watch for $200, right? So I think that's part of it too. And I think right now you have some of these other companies like Whoop, who's just like chasing this, this crazy valuation so that maybe somebody will acquire them, right? I think that's at the end of the day what maybe they're doing. I don't know. I'm not at Whoop headquarters, nor do I work for them, nor do I like them. But yeah.
But some of it is like, if you look at Apple, like I like the integration between devices and knowing it's seamless, that my MacBook and my phone and my iPad and my watch and eventually my car, if they start making those things, will talk to each other and it'll be seamless, and I can get my heart rate during road rage incidents or whatever. I like that part of it. You think that's attractive?
I do 100%. Like, and I'll be honest with you, my favorite measurement that I get from Apple is the 1 minute and 2 minute heart rate recovery number. Like you get that when you end a workout. And now granted, I'm pairing it, it's paired with my Polar H10. So I know it's a good number, but like, I love being able to see that number because now I can get a better understanding of how fast I'm recovering. And then as a proxy can tell me how fit I am, right? Which is huge. So I
Interesting. So
love
you're
that.
using a polar strap with your Apple Watch.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yep. So I just Bluetooth it and pair it right over, and it's really easy. And if for some reason my and I have a Polar watch, I have a Polar Vantage, and I have a Polar Grit X because I've tested them both. I have a Garmin Fenix 6 that I've tested as well. I have my Apple Watch. So what I always do is I just push my Polar to it, and if the Polar drops off for some reason, the watch will pick up. And now I know there'll be some more error there, but it's nice to know at least have some data. Yeah.
I got a question for you. We were talking a little bit about Whoop, and I feel like out of any, this is not, I'm not bashing any company. I'm genuinely trying to figure this out. For me, they've probably taken the biggest backlash from what I've seen when it comes down to accuracy, right? Like it's just something where, we've all seen it. There's been a pretty large discrepancy throughout the years, but they really seem to be one of the companies that is having that fastest level of growth, and they seem to be thriving, right? And I don't really fully get it, right? Like you're wearing a watch that's not really a watch, right? Like you can't see anything on it.
Yeah, that kills me. That
bothers me too. Yeah. Like I at least want to be out for a run, and I'd like to at least time it, or I'd like to at least look down and see how far I've ran. Like there's some basic things that I don't want to carry my phone with, right? Like, and that's what I like about Apple Watch. Okay, you can carry some music with it. It becomes a little bit more mindless. Those are less important things though. But why do you think a company like that is continuing to thrive, yet I haven't heard the most positive feedback on their data?
I think the reason is because they are not a wearable technology company. They are a marketing company that has a wearable product, and they are really good at marketing, and their user interface is really pretty, and it's very intuitive, and it looks good. And they use like really cool terms that I'm sure they ran focus groups on, like strain, right? Yeah. So like they're very smart and calculated with their marketing. They give it away to all of these like $1 million athletes. Here, LeBron, here's 20 Whoop bands in all these different colors. Enjoy, right? Mike Phelps was wearing one when he was commentating for the Olympics. Did Whoop really do anything for Mike Phelps? No, but he sure is wearing one, right? Or they'll pay influencers $3,000 to wear their product, right? I mean, they're marketing geniuses, and they do a good job of that. And that kind of erases any of the stuff like the NBA has done studies validating Whoop or validating its inaccuracy, right? We've looked at it in the military. We've used the Air Force Research Lab to look at it, like these things. But the NBA nor the Air Force Research Lab nor all these other independent labs do we have a big social media presence and marketing prowess, right? We don't have a marketing machine behind us putting out this information, so it doesn't really get out, right?
Where does a private equity firm or a group of venture capitalists, if they come in and they decide to purchase this company, if Will decides to sell it, whatever, and they now have this value, where is the value? Is the value in the product? Is the value in their email distribution list? Is there, like, where is that value? And they should, I mean, you got to figure there's some pretty smart people out there where, if I own one of the largest private equity firms in the world and I was thinking about buying this company, probably the first thing I'm doing is going after someone like you and being like, all right, I need you to literally pick apart this thing and come back to us in a month with every hole in it. And I need you to present to this team to make sure that we're not making a dumb investment. To me, it just seems like Apple is just moving along. And it's like, I'm just sitting here going, not if, when is this going to happen? When are they going to perfect that wrist measuring system? When is heart rate going to become 99.9% spot on? When is it going to get to a point where if someone's, having medical issues and they're about to have a heart attack, that out of nowhere, there's an alarm going off to the local hospital and they're picking this person up before it even happens? As well as I do, this is going to happen. Sure. Where's the value in Whoop when that happens?
Isn't this kind of a reflection of society though, Don? Like, it's like I have 5 million YouTube followers. Now I want to learn how to box, right? And now you got these guys who have the audience, and then they're learning how to do stuff, and then they're profiting off that. That sounds like what Whoop's doing. They have the audience. Are they going to develop and learn how to box? Or are they going to improve their product? Or are they just going to say, fuck it? Like,
that's what I'm asking Brandon. Yeah. I don't know. It just doesn't make, I'm very confused.
Right. So you have to understand, I'm not a business guy, right? So I don't know what their end game is, right? I'm sure they've thought about it. I know that they are getting big valuations. I know when they went to the subscription model, that just pushed things to the limit, right? Do people want to buy them? I don't know. People are investing with them, like Patrick Mahomes is an investor in Whoop, right? So, people don't do their diligence. Maybe these venture capitalists would, right? Or maybe they wouldn't, because you know what? They know how stupid people are, right? Like Mark Twain says, it's easier to fool you than convince that you've been fooled, right? It's like, it's so true. Like you look at society, I think Derek hit it on the head, right? We don't know what to believe, right? So what do? Oh, we look at the influence. Well, certainly LeBron James wouldn't wear it if it was bad, right? Why would he do that? I mean, certainly he has a group of people around him that would tell him, hey, I wouldn't wear that because it's not good, right? That's what people think about, right?
I heard that LeBron James' shoe, he doesn't wear it. The actual shoe that they make with his name on it, he wears a different shoe, but they kind of make it look like his shoe because he will not wear a shoe. That's what I heard. So that's where we're at.
There you go. It's crazy. But here's one for you that's going to throw everything off, right? Is that we are already starting to see Nearables come into play.
Huh?
So what a Nearable? So what a Nearable is that imagine being in the hospital, right? And you know how they come in, the worst place to get sleep is in the hospital, because they always come in, they check your blood pressure and they check your heart rate and all these and vitals and temperature every shift change, right? Now we have Nearable technology. It's very young, but we can capture heart rate, temperature, blood pressure, and right from just devices being near you, right? We can do that with sleep. So now there's a whole market that will soon be here of where you're, in your room at night, you don't have to wear anything, and all of a sudden it's pulling all this data off of you. When you get up in the morning and look in the mirror, there'll be a camera embedded within the mirror, and it'll be able to tell you your heart rate, your temperature, your blood pressure, and a few other measurements right now. And there are companies that are doing this and working on this, right? There are, wellness toilets that will give you your hydration and give you spot on, information about fecal matter, right? And then could also tell you if you're positive for COVID at the same time, right? Because of that. So like all of these things are coming, right? It's just a matter of what, the prototypes are already out there. I've seen a lot of these prototypes for these things. They're not commercially mature, and then obviously they're going to be expensive, and then the price has to go down. Just like think about like flat screen TVs, right? They used to be like $5,000. Now you can go down to Costco and pick a big one up for like $250, right? But so there's still a long way to go with those, but it's coming. That's coming too.
Don, you need one of those smart toilets to tell you who's stuffing it with paper towels in your gym.
My toilet was getting clogged, Brandon. Someone was stuffing, these paper napkins. Don't ask. It was kind of a pet peeve. All right, thanks for bringing that up, Derek. What? And I don't know, Brandon, I don't know if you have the answer to this. This is a curveball I'm throwing at you. But what percentage of the people out there that are actually wearing wearables know what the hell they're even looking at?
Like, a lot of them don't.
Look at a heart rate monitor. Like people are like, I got to buy a heart rate monitor. I'm like, well, what are you measuring? And they're like they don't know what they're using it for. Like you look at it from a recovery standpoint, like pretty good thing to look at, in my opinion. Probably the biggest thing I'm looking at. What percentage of people do you think are don't even know what they're buying these things for?
I don't know, because there's a lot of people also who get these things as gifts, right? Like, hey, I got a family member that needs to lose some weight. I'm going to go buy him a Fitbit, right? and they won't know what to do with it either. So I think you're right. There's a lot of ignorance around it. But again, going back to Whoop, like they have this huge stuff that, I mean, it's not bad information about like what is HRV and what is resting heart rate. Like they have an education platform built in as well, right? It doesn't say our stuff's not accurate, but if it were, here's what this would tell you, right? So there's that piece of it too. But there's a lot of people that really don't know what to do with it. But at the end of the day, what does a wearable do? Behaviors, habits, and choices. That's what it's supposed to influence.
Right. And I guess at the end of the day, to back up some of these companies, if it's enabling someone to make better choices and better decisions, then it's probably doing what it should be doing. What frustrates me sometimes is when a lot of these companies claim this is a high performance product. And when I think of high performance, I don't really think of something that's, well, based off of our algorithm, it's going to give us a direction, right? Like that's not, to me, that's not really high performance.
Right. Those are marketing terms, right? High performance, best in class, right? All of these things are terms that we hear on a daily basis that like, it's elite, right? All of these things, right? Everybody uses them. I went by Wendy's a few weeks ago. I drove by and I saw it said, quality is our recipe. Is that low quality or high quality? I don't know. But like, it's like, it's like quality in, not so quality, right? But it's those things that it's all marketing, right? And they do a good job of that.
Where is the sleep market at? I think it kind of, I don't know if it peaked and now people don't give a damn about sleep anymore, but I kind of get that feeling. And I know I had done some work with fatigue science and we gave people the bands and all that. And if the one thing I found was funny is the people who had shitty sleep didn't want to keep wearing the band. They just like gave it back. They're like, it's like, I know I have shitty sleep, whatever, this is confirming something, my bad behavior or whatever.
Right.
Has the sleep market kind of stalled, or where is it at?
I don't know if it's stalled, but I think that I hate to say people are getting tired of it, no pun intended, but I think people have figured out, I already know I'm a crappy sleeper, so whatever, right? And that's kind of what they're dealing with, right? Is like, yeah, I know I sleep well, I know I don't sleep well. Why do I need this wearable to tell me that? Whatever. I still have to work. I got to get up earlier. I have to stay up late. I got to work the night shift. What's going to tell me? I can't change anything. So I think that's kind of where we are.
Yeah, because I found that my sleep was an indicator of things I was doing during the day. So if I had, had a poor diet or had some stress, something, traumatic event, it would always be represented in my sleep. So I was almost using my sleep to kind of go, oh, you're doing all this stupid stuff, like clean that up. And then it would kind of rectify itself.
Right. No, totally. And I think that's how you use the data, right? You use long-term data, you use trends. Like I use HRV from a trend standpoint. I don't get caught up in the number. I use my Oura Ring. Why? Because that's what I like to wear when I sleep. Okay. And so I know that, okay, if I'm like 90, 92, here's where I am. If I stay up late and don't get a lot of sleep, it drops. If I have a couple of glasses of wine, it drops. If I'm stressed, it drops, right? If I'm well rested, up it goes, right? If I'm whatever it is, I can just see that. So I can get an understanding of what happens to my nighttime physiology as a result of decisions I make during the day.
You know what? It's funny. I'm looking at my Whoop right. I'm sorry, my Whoop. I'm looking at my Oura right now. We're talking about Whoop so much. I'm looking at my Oura right now. And there's one area on my Oura that's always, it's kind of got that little pay attention thing on, right? And it's restfulness. And one of the, as you read, and I like how Oura does this, right? If you're unsure of what restfulness is, you click on it and it gives your definition of restfulness. But it says everyone moves and wakes up during sleep, but too much tossing and turning can have an effect on your sleep quality. You can see your movement during sleep under your sleep stage graph. Hold on. Restfulness tracks your wake ups, excessive movement, and getting up from bed during your sleep. It takes into account all your sleep, including naps. And it talks about disturbances can be caused by things like stress, noise, bed partner, pets, and different foods, right? So, looking at this, everything's good, but there's two areas here that I can't correct. And one's my wife, that I'm in bed with her, right? It's just not like I'm not throwing her out of bed. And two's the fact that I sleep with 2 dogs. Right. So like I look at that and I'm like, all right, well, what the hell am I going to do? Like those, I take ownership on that. Like I'm just like, all right, listen, you know what? It is what it is. I'm not throwing those 3 out of my bed. I'm going to have to deal with this for the rest of my life. And it's like, sometimes do we become a little too obsessive? This is still, it's still technology, right? Is it still spot on? Like where are we? How close are we for this to being 100% accurate?
Well, I think we're still a ways off from being 100% accurate. But I think the thing you have to look at too is like that's good information, because what they might tell you is it might say, hey, Don, you need to look into a mattress that has less motion transfer.
Interesting.
Right. So now it's like, okay, this is what I'll do now. I have a countermeasure I can deploy. Right. I can get a mattress that I find comfortable, my wife finds comfortable, my dogs may or may not find comfortable. And if they move, I don't feel it, right? Because that's something you can do. This does help you maybe.
A perfect example. I didn't know that. I really didn't even think to ask for something.
There we go. I'll send you my bill.
Thank you. Perfect. But I think that's a perfect example of sometimes we get a little dismissive. I can't fix it. I'm going to continue to use it. You just taught me something there. Now I can look into that a bit.
Right. And it's like the other things too. It's like, okay, I wake up because, it's a temperature thing, right? Well, my wife likes this temperature. I like it this temperature. Well, what do I do now? Right. Well, what I do is I get a chili pad, or I invest in something like that, or something, a thermos that has a thermostat that I can do, both sides of the bed, or, a mattress that has like thermal properties, right? That has cooling technologies. I'm going to sign for this really quick. I just had a delivery.
I love it. I was actually looking at a company called Bright, Bryte. And
Okay.
I went into the city to try, they invited me into the city. They're like, come stay for a weekend, try out our mattress. And I was like, all right, I'm just curious. And I went in there and I was blown away how you can control the firmness on each side of the bed. You can also control the temperature. I like sleeping in the cold around 65 degrees. I was able to actually drop the temperature, and I saw a significant improvement on the 2 nights I stayed at that mattress on this. So whether this is 100% or not, it was at least able to show me that behavioral change, right? And I was pretty much, even after 2 nights, I was like, oh my God, I wasn't able to, I think restfulness was the area that wasn't in the red. And I think my REM actually increased, which my REM is always kind of borderline also, but things like that point you in a good direction where you're like, okay, it doesn't have to be 100% accurate, right? It's just showing that improvement. Do you agree or not?
No, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. If you can see improvement, that's fine. Like I said, sleep staging stuff, I kind of don't even look at because I know it's not right. Right. I don't even look at up and downs there. I just look at sleep quantity and sleep quality. And did it get better or did it not? Did I have a more restful night or did I not? Why? Right? Yeah, sure, I'm staying there at that place, but is it the mattress or do they also manipulate the environment? Right. Is it really dark? Do I not have any time cues and those things? Those are questions that I need to ask.
Is it because my dogs aren't in bed with me that night?
Yeah, exactly.
So you didn't buy the mattress?
No, I think they might send me one though, and I will.
Oh, okay. Do the dog test.
Yeah, I will do the test, and hopefully the dogs will love it. But yeah, good. It's very, very, very helpful.
Brandon, have you found anything that you use for blood pressure monitoring? I was looking at some devices that hook, into the Apple Watch and all that. I think one's called a cardio with a Q. Is there anything you've seen that's useful for blood pressure monitoring?
I like the Withings. Withings makes a Withings. They make a portable one, which I love. I actually use it myself. So I think that's a good one to have and a good one to use.
Do you find that
ties in nicely with an app, and it stores all your information. It's really good.
Do you find the blood pressure readings correlate with other metrics that you look at as well?
I mean, not necessarily. No, because someone can have high blood pressure and have a heart rate of 50.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, those things aren't always the same. They're not always, correlated with one another.
Yeah, that's what I found, you know,
Yeah.
because my resting rate's about 50 and yeah, sometimes my blood pressure will jump up, and I've talked to other people around my age group and they've had similar sort of results as well. So yeah, that's one that interests me.
Getting old, man.
So
Yeah, can't prevent.
So Brandon, you're still recommending that people lean more towards the chest strap over the wristwatches, correct?
100%, 100%. Yeah, at this time, yes. Because you also remember when you're wearing the wrist, you have to wear it in the right spot. When they do the validation stuff, like they place them and they put them right there next to the bone and it's at the right tightness. So those things are all in place.
Interesting. Awesome.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
some people use like an upper arm band.
Yeah, like Whoop has one of those now as well, right?
Yeah.
Well, why do we need that if yours was so accurate, right? So I think that's something to consider too.
Well, why would the upper armband be more accurate?
Closer to the heart?
Yeah, I mean, we have the brachial pulse you can pull from right here, right? So they're getting pulse rate from here rather than pulse rate from the wrist.
Right. Right. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't, I mean, you have multiple watches. The question I had for you was, do you like interchange them for different tasks, or are you leaning more toward just having the Apple Watch now, or?
I like the Apple Watch. That's what I'm used to.
Okay.
Like I use the other ones for just testing, and because we use a lot of them for some of the military work that we do.
Okay.
Military loves Garmin. Why do they like Garmin? Because it's just what they've always had, right? It's more of like, well, it's what we do. We wear Garmin. Okay. Right. And there's a land navigation thing with the Garmin too. So it's like, you know, that's just kind of what they do.
Garmin's definitely branded towards tactical watches and
totally. Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's a marketing piece right there too. Right. So they realize that, but, you know, and I think the land navigation piece is nice. Right. I mean, they have dive watches too, you know, they have the dive, Garmin Descents and those things, which are actually almost like dive computers. So,
and the other thing is like, I can't get over still, I have to charge an Apple Watch daily, even though it's faster charging now. Like, I like the fact that I can get 6 days out of my Garmin. What are your thoughts on that?
No, again, that's the comfort level. So the more you like, some of the Garmin I have, the Phoenix 6 is solar powered too.
Oh,
so
wow.
if I wear it outside, it actually kind of, it's not like great, but it's good enough, right? I can get like, I don't know how many days, 15, 16 days sometimes, depending on what I'm doing. If I'm outside, I get even more. But you know, the more you onboard, it's like Ready Band, right? Fatigue science stuff. You know, remember we didn't have to charge that like once every 3 weeks. We charge it because it was just like an actigraph, and that was it. It was an accelerometer. And now all of a sudden you onboard a heart rate monitor, and you onboard, you know, oxygen sensing, and you onboard, you know, a red and green LED to look at heart rate. Now, you know, now it's like there's more stuff on there that comes at a cost of power. So that's kind of where we are with that. So I think it's again, it's up to a consumer, what they want to wear and what they don't want to wear, and how much they want to charge it or not want to charge it. I think we're in a world now where we like are used to charging things at night, right? I'll put my watch in, plug my phone in, plug my computers in, plug my car in, whatever, right?
Right. I mean, the last question that I have for you is, a few years ago, I remember us kicking off and having a similar conversation, right? And I remember at the time you said the Apple Watch was probably the most accurate wearable, but it was still off by, I'm making this number up, 20 to 30 beats a minute, or potentially 20 to 30 a minute. Right. How much has that evolved? Like, have you noticed a significant improvement in that? Or do you just still feel like, I'm shocked these companies haven't nailed it yet. Like we saw wrist wearables, you know, come around a decade ago, and they're measuring. I would have thought by now they would have had it, but how much improvement have they shown?
They've made a lot. So Apple particularly has made a lot. So that one we were talking about was that first generation Apple Watch, where it was like, it was close to 20, right? It was like negative 21 plus 22, something like that. You know, 95% of the variance was that when compared to an ECG. It's gotten a lot better, right? Assuming you're wearing it in the right spot, right? And remember, a lot of these things sometimes are really only looked at during rest. And then the more active you become and the more you move, then the error starts to grow, right? That's also something to consider sometimes. It's like these sleep wearables. Like if you sleep really well, they do a good job of measuring your sleep, but the worse of a sleeper you are, the more error there is with that. But, you know, they are getting better. The question is, you made a comment, which was, you know, why haven't they cracked this yet? I think Apple's trying to. But I think a lot of these other companies don't want to because it costs money. So if the best heart rate monitor on the market is 75% accurate, made that number up, why do I want to spend R&D dollars to get to 95 when all I have to do is get to 78 and say I have the best? Right? I think that's what it is. It's a minimum viable product.
Is there liability associated with saying that I have this great accurate device, and will that lead to problems if people say like, well, my watch didn't tell me that I had this atrial fibrillation? Or
so they're not making claims like that, right? I mean, the atrial fib thing, they say it can detect it, but there's always an asterisk by it, right?
Go see your doctor.
Yeah, go see your doctor. This is not intended to diagnose or treat any illness, blah, 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 right? It's not to be a substitute for a cardiologist or a cardiovascular screening, whatever. You know, and these things are consumer off the shelf, and they're not lying, right? If they say we have the most accurate heart rate monitor on the market and it's 78% accurate, they're not lying, right? It was the inference that we make that, oh, most accurate means it's got to be 100.
Right.
Or close to it.
Last question I have is, where do you see this going? Is there anything on the horizon that you see like, oh, okay, that's where we're going to move to, and you know, I really need to have that? Or any of the clients that you have wanting different functionality, or you know, or is everybody pretty happy now, or do you think there's new stuff coming out?
No, there's new stuff coming out. I think we're going to see a whole influx of in-ear wearable devices. So like, can I wear earphones that I can talk to people, that I can, you know, have noise cancellation, but also have, you know, can pick up heart rate from the ear, which is really, really accurate, by the way. Can I pick up temperature from the ear? Can I pick up hydration from the ear? Can I pick up blood pressure from the ear? And hey, if it's really form fitting, maybe I can sleep in them too, and it'll cancel noise out, and it can also use to monitor sleep. So there's like tons of stuff coming along with the Nearable stuff that I mentioned previously that I think will be like, will be big.
How about a heads-up display? Are they going to come back to that?
They might. You know, I mean, I think they're certainly for certain sports. There's already those, you know, those heads-up displays. You know, downhill skiing or skiing in general, swimming, cycling, right? Just to give you some better information, to give you some sort of information, or a dashboard, if you will. Shouldn't say dashboard. Instrument cluster, right? Dashboard is actually the part which is like the board, but the cluster is what everybody just anyway. That people, you know, want some greater granularity of the data, more accessible to them. But you know, at the end of the day, the biggest hurdle to any data is really the portrayal of the information. How is it being visualized? Because you know, the most dangerous thing about data is the ability for people to misinterpret it. Right. And if it is displayed poorly or in a manner which is not, that's something Whoop does well, right? They display it really well. You know, that's part of the battle, right? It's like, how can I look at the data to and make a decision like that, right? And make it easy to look at. It's like again, it's going back to your car, right? I can look down at the instruments for just a second and look up, and I have good information of what I need, right? Because I know how to read it, and I can make decisions on what I do driving.
But also people obsessing over this stuff, which I've been seeing for the last couple of years, right? It's you know, you get it's like when you brought up body fat earlier. I think it could be a useful tool, but it can also become, I think, a dangerous weapon for someone.
It can be, right? People can look at it, you know, okay, well, they compare, right? The comparison game, right? I'm 15%. That's not good. Why? Well, I don't know. It just seems high. Right. High for what, right? Like if you know, I mean, I don't know what that means, but sure, 15%.
Or when people are comparing it maybe too much, like week by week. Well, why am I a quarter? Why is my body fat a quarter point up? And you're like, oh my God, like you got to like put this, like get that data, put it away, leave it alone for whatever, 6 months to a year.
Exactly.
Use it as a tool. Don't become so obsessive over it that now your mood and your demeanor is being completely thrown off because you're being dictating success to a number, which may not.
Some data we want to look at it daily, some data we want to look at it weekly, some data monthly, some data yearly, right? And I think that's the important thing, you know. It goes back to the HRV thing, you know. I'm like around 92. My wife is 255. Like she is by the Oura Ring, 255 people are like, what is that about? I'm like, it is what it is. It's not about comparing.
Yeah.
It's just that this is her and she deviates from here when this happens. So it's like,
Right.
it's less about that. And
I have a great anecdote. The vehicle that my son drives, it's one of our older vehicles, but still modern enough. Dashboard lights, all of them came on, flashing, going crazy. We thought the car was going to explode. Guess what the problem was? What did I have to fix? Gas cap. I had to replace the gas cap.
there you go. Right.
And I found that out on YouTube. And I
gosh.
probably could have taken it to the service shop and they could have charged me through the nose. $25 gas cap.
Unbelievable.
So
Close down that. Brandon, thank you. Can you let everyone know where they can find you?
I mean, I don't have a big presence online. I mean, I have Twitter and I have Instagram, but Instagram is more like personal. If you want to see family photos, go to Instagram. If you want to hear me talk about wearables and things like that, it'll be on Twitter. So be Marcello 13 or be Marcello 13 for those of you who are European or Canadian.
Brandon, always a pleasure, man. It's great having you on, buddy.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man. Good to see you guys.
See you,
great
dude.
info. Thank you.
Yep.